All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Christopher Kraus, your Learning and Development Specialist at Embraer, and welcome to our remote wellness webinar. This week's topic is Stretch for Health. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker in just a minute, but as always, I've got some light housekeeping for you. So Joe, if you could go to that next page there. All right, so it looks like everybody is right on track here. We're muting microphones, we're disabling the video. Thank you all for doing that. This session is being recorded, so just a reminder there. And we will have some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. And let's try to do that through chat. I think that works nicely. But once we get into it, if it seems like we're good and we're doing well, I'll let you know if we can open up your microphone so we can just ask questions freely. And as always, remember there's the survey at the end of the session. We're going to have the QR code up on the screen. Just open up your camera, point your phone towards that QR code, and complete the survey for us. We're always looking for new topics to share with you all. All right, so with that, we've got Joe DiMatteis back from United Healthcare, our United Healthcare health coach. And Joe, take it away.
All right, thank you, Chris, and hello and welcome to the Stretch for Health presentation brought to you by the Be Well Wellness Committee and United Healthcare. As Chris said, I'm Joe DiMatteis. I am your health coach. I've been a health coach now for 7 years, and I've been in my role with United Healthcare for 4 years, and I've been serving the Embraer executive account for a little over 2 years now. Seems like just yesterday I started, but thanks again for taking time out of your busy days or busy schedule to attend. And let's dive right into it. During this presentation, we're going to explain the importance of stretching and what it means to our overall health. We're going to explore the connection between stretching and flexibility. We're going to learn about the benefits of stretching, understanding guidelines for safe stretching. We're going to talk about the two main types of stretching and examples of each. At the end, it's going to be a little bit interactive. I'm going to lead you guys through just a few stretches just to get you up, moving around for a little bit. We're going to talk about the key elements for an effective warm-up, and we're going to learn proper techniques for stretching. So I want to ask you guys, do you know that there is a connection between stretching and flexibility? Flexibility, it's an important component of physical activity, and we should be incorporating this not just into physical fitness, but just in our daily lifestyle. The exclusion of flexibility training or stretching, it could lead to injury and poor performance, and especially, other complications later in life. Stretching is similar to flexibility. It's the most effective way to develop and retain flexible muscles and joints. Even for those who are not participating in a physical fitness program, stretching is important. I just mentioned a little bit ago, by adding stretching into our daily routine, we can improve or maintain flexibility. And this is what's going to enable us to continue to perform daily activities with ease and help decrease, the risk of injury, especially as we get older, as we tend to lose flexibility, it's going to be harder to maintain that. Now that we know a little bit about flexibility and stretching, let's talk a little bit about the benefits and why we should incorporate. So when we stretch, we're able to increase the length of time that muscles are associated with their soft tissues. This process in general is going to help reduce muscle tension. It's going to help promote increased range of motion. And as part of a cool down after exercising, stretching also, believe it or not, can help relieve muscle soreness and enhance muscle recovery by lengthening the individual muscle fibers. It's going to help with increasing blood flow and removing lactic acid, which could build up after a workout. And for those of you that aren't familiar with lactic acid, it's produced in your muscles during intense exercise, and it can cause fatigue, post-muscle soreness. So think about when you're running and you're sprinting and you get that real tightness in your legs. That's lactic acid. That means your body can no longer adequately produce the oxygen to sustain that level of intensity. And there are other benefits, of stretching, such as improved posture. This may help avoid other alignment issues and muscular imbalances that are related to posture, particularly when we're sitting. And a proper environment with proper technique and stretching, it can encourage mental relaxation, And some individuals even enjoy stretching to help reduce stress, as we talked about in some of the other previous presentations if you've joined us on. So let's get into the guidelines of stretching. I'm going to put these up right here. As with other activities, there's guidelines to help ensure that stretching is done not only correctly but safely. Keep in mind that stretching, if you're not doing it properly, it can be more harmful than beneficial. If you're not physically fit or have any pains or stiffness or injury, it is recommended that you always consult with a medical professional. Talk to your doctor before you begin an exercise program, just to make sure you're taking precautions. So how can we ensure that we're doing this safely and effectively? When we stretch, we want to make sure our muscles are warm. And to do that, you always want to start off with a light warm-up, whether that's taking a short walk or calisthenics or like jumping jack, something to get your heart rate up. You never want to rush through a stretching routine. You want to make sure that we're stretching, gently, slowly, smoothly, and you only want to stretch to the point where you're feeling mild tension in your muscles. And remember, always make sure you're breathing during each stretch, because if you hold your breath, you're going to tense your muscles and you're going to make it more difficult to get that stretch in. And lastly, you want to make sure that you stretch each muscle group in its full range of motion. Let's take a look at the 4 elements for effective stretching. So a warm-up should be a light activity, as I mentioned in the previous slide, whether that's walking, jogging, easy aerobics. And that could be anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes up to 10 minutes, depending on, if you're inside, outside. Obviously, if you're in Florida with the heat and humidity, it seems as soon as you walk outside, you start sweating, but that's not an adequate warm-up. In that case, you want to do about 3 minutes worth. And the purpose of the stretching and the warming up, it's to prepare our mind and our body for more strenuous activity, greater intensity. It's going to help increase our body's core temperature, muscle temperature. It's going to increase our heart rate, our respiratory rate. It's also going to increase blood flow, and the benefit of that is it's going to increase the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the muscles being worked. 2 main types of stretching. Just as there are many different ways to strength train, there's a lot of different ways to stretch, and there's no one size fits all. Each has its own advantages and disadvantages, and the key to getting the most out of stretching is to be able to match the right type of stretch for the goal that you want to achieve. The 2 main types are static and dynamic. Static stretching, that's the most popular. We're going to be doing some of those at the end, and that's performed by extending the targeted muscle group to its maximal point of tension, not to the point of pain, and you hold it anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds. But unlike static, dynamic stretching, that requires the use of continuous movement patterns that mimic the exercise or sport performed. Generally speaking, these improve flexibility for sports. So for example, if you've ever watched the Olympics and you've getting ready to watch the gymnastics go through their routine, they're doing a lot of dynamic stretching, with their legs and their arms. Or if you've watched track and field, you'd see hurdlers standing in place, rotating their knee over the hurdle. It's to get them ready for competition. So not so much something that we're going to do, later on a day-to-day basis. As we just mentioned, static stretching, this refers to stretches that are performed without movement. You're going to hold the stretch for a specific amount of time. And they involve placing the body in positions where the muscle group is being stretched under tension. In this illustration right here, it talks about the 4 different types of static. So we have on the top left, we have passive, which is also known as assisted. And this is a form of stretching that includes the aid of a person or an object to help stretch the muscles. While it's effective, it can be a little bit more hazardous due to the increased amount of tension. Active is very similar to passive. It's used without the help of any external force. And this stretch uses force of the opposing muscle group to generate a stretch within the targeted muscle group. But when the opposing muscles contract, it helps relax the stretch muscle. On the bottom left, we have proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, which is also known as PNF stretching. This is a more advanced form that involves both stretching and contracting the muscle targeted. And this is originally was developed as a form of rehabilitation, and there's many different ways to do it. This would be if an example would be if you were lying on your back and you had one leg flat on the ground and your other leg elevated, and someone were to slowly push your heel back. Think of it, during track and field or football, someone stretches your hamstring, but you're applying pressure with your heel to drive that person's arm down while they're stretching. That would be an example of PNF. And then the most common that we're all familiar with is isometric. This is a form of passive stretching. The contractions are held for a longer period of time. And, we don't recommend this for kids or adolescents, but this would be something like if you were to just reach over and touch your toes and stretch out your hamstrings. Let's move on to the dynamic stretching. This is performed with movement. So remember, static is without, dynamic is with. This uses very controlled soft bouncing or swinging, limiting the range of motion. Dynamic is very slow, it's gentle, it's purposeful, but during this time, you never want to stretch beyond its normal range of motion. So think of this as more for athletic purposes. I mentioned a little bit ago with track and field and gymnastics. So we have ballistic. This is actually outdated. It's a very aggressive stretch that uses rapid swinging and bouncing and rebounding movements to force the body past its normal range of motion. Again, remember we said never to stretch past your normal range of motion, but again, this is something that was used mainly back in the 70s and 80s, but what research has shown is actually can cause more harm than good. So there's definitely more downfalls than the positives. To the right of that, we have activated isolated stretching. This works by contracting the opposing muscle group, which then forces the stretch muscle group to relax. Has benefits, but again, this is mainly for professional and well-conditioned athletes. And then we have resistance load stretching. This is a form of dynamic stretching that both contracts and lengthens a muscle at the same time. So how to decide? Always remember to stretch before and after any type of physical activity, especially the more strenuous or the longer your activity. Depending on the exercise or activity you're engaging in, your routine, it's always going to include a warm-up, preferably some dynamic stretching prior, but during the cool down, remember, we want to keep it static. And if you're looking to improve range of motion, PNF in active isolation actually, in terms of research, shows to be the most beneficial in terms of increasing flexibility. And if you're rehabbing injury, you always want to consult with your physical therapist or your doctor to decide, because they're the most qualified that are going to tell you what you need to do specifically to help you rehabilitate your injury. A lot of people ask, well, how long should you stretch? Well, there's no true answer to that. Again, it depends on if you're just stretching for everyday health or if you're an athlete. The American College of Sports Medicine recommends that stretching every major muscle group at least 2 times a week for a minimum of 30 to 60 seconds. I feel anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds, just enough that you feel tension. Because remember, overstretching too can be more, detrimental. And again, as you age, you need a little bit more stretching than younger folks too, but as a sign of aging, you're going to lose the elasticity of your joints. But if you keep up with stretching, you tend to lose those adaptations a little bit slower. So when we stretch, we want to make sure that we're always emphasizing proper technique and safety. So to warm up first using dynamic stretches, cool down with static. We never want to stretch past the point of pain. Remember, it's always to the point where you feel a little bit of tension. Stretch should always be gentle to start, but as you become, more flexible and increase the flexibility, you can increase the range of motion. So, for example, if you were to reach over and touch your toes, you may only be able to go midway down through your calves. And then if you take a 10-second rest and you go to stretch again, you're going to be able to increase just a little bit more because you're increasing the flow of blood and oxygen to the muscles. Some tips to keep in mind. Remember, we always want to leave you with some tips before you go. The best way is to warm up first. preferably 3 to 5 minutes, up to 10 minutes. Again, weather's going to have a factor, so you're going to need to warm up less in 90-degree weather versus if you were in 40-degree cooler temperature. Always, you want to make it specific. So you want to try. So if you are doing things like cycling, there's if you were to stand and elevate your knee and roll your hip outward to help increase hip flexibility, to increase because that's what's going to go hand in hand with cycling, and then keeping the static for after stretching, or for after the exercise, excuse me. So in summary, we talked about the connection between stretching, flexibility, the benefits. We talked about the two main types of stretching: dynamic, which has movement, and static, which is without, which is what we're going to do in just a little bit. Proper techniques, the benefits, and then lastly, remember, we always want to cover all major muscle groups 2 times a week, preferably stretch a day, and then leave a couple days of non-stretching to the point of tension for about 10 to 30 seconds. Always remember to breathe. So now we're just going to do some stretches. So these incorporate a little bit of dynamic and static. So while you're in your chair, if you want to stand up, that's fine too. We're going to start off doing some arm circles. So I want you to just put your arms out to your side, almost as if you're flying in the air. And I want you to slowly make arm circles forward. Do 3 of those forward. This would be something that would be dynamic, because remember, we're using movement. Now reverse, go in the opposite direction. This is something that can help with shoulder flexibility. So next, let's move into neck curls. I want you to put your chin down toward your chest. You don't have to touch. If you have issues with your neck, then only go to the point of tension. If you want to omit this, that's fine too. Now I want you to roll your head around, just like in the illustration, 3 times clockwise, and then 3 times counterclockwise. Now I want you to take one arm. We're going to move into the shoulder stretch. I want you to take one arm and cross it over your body, and with your opposite hand, I want you to grab on the outside of your elbow and slowly pull it towards your chest. And just hold it for a few seconds. This is going to stretch our deltoid out. This is another shoulder stretch. And switch sides. Cross the other arm in front of your body. Pull it towards you just a little bit. Now the next one's a calf stretch. So what I want you to do for this one is stand up right behind your chair, using your chair for balance. And I want you to put one foot close to the chair, and I want you to step back 1 step while keeping your back leg straight and your foot flat on the ground. I want you to lean forward, just like in that illustration, just to the point where we feel tension in our calves. That's known as our gastrocnemius muscle. And switch sides. Put the other foot forward, the other foot back, and lean forward. Now let's move into the hamstring stretch. So still using your chair for balance, I want you to step back, and I want you to put one leg straight forward. If you have a step that you want to do it on, that's fine. But since you could do this standing up, you basically put one foot out in front of you with your toe pointed up, keeping that leg straight, just like the guy is doing, and lean forward just a little bit, only to the point of tension. And switch sides, other foot forward, keeping the knee straight, keeping your toe pointed up, and lean forward just a little bit. And the last one, let's move into the quad stretch. So just like in an illustration, we're going to stand, and you're going to use your opposite foot to pick your foot up. Now, if you can't do that, I want you to pretend that chair is behind you, using a countertop or another chair in front of you. I want you to put your foot right where that arrow is. I want you to put your foot on the chair, and I want you to just lean back slightly if you don't have the flexibility to pick up your foot. And you feel that tension right in the front of your quadricep. Now switch legs, and same thing. Pick your foot up or place it on the chair and stretch. All right, you guys can have a seat. All right, and here's, again, as always, we always have our United Healthcare resources. We have the mobile apps, the Sanvelo app. We've talked about the Calm app, which are for stress relief. Using the UHC is the app for myuhc.com. where you guys can find care and cost. We've talked about the Rally Health. Make sure you guys are doing, if you haven't done so, to do your health survey to get your $125. And also a reminder to, at some point this year, do your annual physical if you haven't done so to get $125 as well. Any questions that you guys may have on today's material that we went over?
And guys, you can take yourselves off mute if you have a question, or if you prefer to do the chat, you're more than welcome to do that too. I'm checking those. So we have one. During the home office period, we are more seated than we are in the office. Are these techniques proper also for the legs? Any advice to avoid occupational overuse syndrome?
It's a good question. Yes, I actually have a handout that I can send to you, Chris. It's a simple 10-minute stretching routine that you can do not just at home, but at your desk. It's designed for professionals that have proper work attire on, and you're not going to have the freedom with gym clothes to do the normal stretches that some people do in the gym. Back to the guidelines we've talked about, you only need to stretch, at least for folks like us in the general population, non-specific athletes, as I like to say, only a couple times a week, hitting all the major muscle groups, holding for anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds just to the point of tension. That shouldn't cause any overuse. Now remember what we said, if you hold longer than 10 to 30 seconds, yeah, you could be doing more harm than good, because you only need so much stretching. And also, stretching every day is not necessarily beneficial, at least as we age. Now for younger folks and athletes, it's obviously going to go hand in hand with sports specificity. But I'll make sure I get that out to you guys.
Yeah, Joe, if you could send that. And also, I think that this PowerPoint is a great reference for people. It was good to go through, but then maybe tomorrow when they want to give it a try, they might, I don't want them to have to watch through the whole recording. So could you send this PowerPoint to me and I'll forward it to them at the same time as the other?
Absolutely. Yeah, and the handout actually has the instructions on how to do every one, because that I didn't include that in the PowerPoint. It just had the picture, as I'm talking through it.
Perfect.
And then while I have you guys, I will move over to the Q&R code.
Thank you.
And you can continue to ask the questions while we're doing this.
Yep. So if you haven't done so already, just grab your phone, open to the camera, point to the QR code on the screen, and the survey will pop up. Please give us your feedback. We'd love to hear it, especially those future topics. Everything we've done in the last couple of months has directly related to the topics that that everyone has shared in these surveys. So thank you. What other questions do we have for Joe?
And there will be a quiz too. Remember, we will be a quiz going out next week. You guys can submit to win some gift cards. Good opportunity.
Yeah, good point, actually, Joe. So on Mondays, I'm sure you all have seen, we do I call it a newsletter. So it's the learning and development newsletter that goes out every Monday morning through the North America, or the Embraer North America corporate comms group. And that's how you find out about these coming future sessions. But we also have the quiz that you'll get a link to in that email. So take a look at it, because if you complete the quiz, and you should be able to complete the quiz because you completed this class, then in 2 weeks, Joe will give you a call and you guys can work together on a gift card. All right, Joe, I don't see any other questions that are coming up. So I think we are good to go. Thank you so much for your ongoing help here. It's really good information, I think, for our employees to have, and hopefully, I found this one to be very, very helpful. I'm definitely going to be stretching more often.
Yes.
So
yes.
All
well,
right.
Thank you guys for having me, and have a great weekend. And again, any questions, my contact information is here. Any other resources, please don't hesitate to reach out, and wish everyone a great weekend.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Joe.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Be safe.